Okay guys, so this is the third video, and this one I've labeled 1.4 Interpreter Memory Game. A lot of interpreting we actually try to do by memory, and this simple game should actually help you to understand how we manage it if we're trying to remember something that's maybe 1 minute long or 2 minutes long. Sorry if I'm messing around here, it's because my little cat's joined me. Now, so how can I explain this? When we're doing a consecutive interpreting and we're not taking notes and we're just going by memory, then the most important thing is that you try to create a picture in your head. If you try to remember the words that the person has said, then it becomes very, very difficult. You're trying to remember a long stream of sentences. Alternatively, most of the time that you'll be interpreting using your memory, someone will be asking another person questions about an experience they've had, and they'll list off, they'll give details about a certain experience. Now, in the first place, you've probably done some pre-research and you probably know what the person's already talking about when it's being mentioned. But in the second part of this, you will hopefully be able to create a picture of a number of scenes connecting to one another. Now, a game that I play with my students is I will list 15 items. Actually 10 items and 5 events, and I asked the students to create maybe 2 or 3 pictures in the head of those first 10 items, and I asked the students to create a picture in the head of the different events, and then when they repeat back those, they're just looking at those pictures and they're just using a different language to explain the pictures they have in their head. So what I'm going to do now, I have 5 items that I would buy at a supermarket. I have 5 items that, perhaps I wouldn't buy these, but 5 items that could be bought at a clothing store. And I have 5 activities. Okay, so when I read these items to you, I want you to create a picture in your head, maybe 2 or 3 of these items in each picture. Okay, I'm going to start now. So all 15. Okay, listen carefully. First, go to the supermarket and buy me some bread, some fish, some butter, tofu, and salt. Then I'd like you to go to the clothing store and I'd like you to buy me a red hat, a blue shirt, red trousers, pink socks, and blue shoes. Following this, go to university. Take a linguistics lesson. Have lunch with Taro. Then play badminton with Jiro. And finally, have dinner with Saburo. Okay, now that I've said everything, see if you can take them down. Maybe pause the video. I'll speak and I'll show you the answers in about 15 seconds. Okay, so I'm going to pull these up on the screen now, and here you go. Here are the 15 items. So if this were me, if I were in this situation, I get these items. First of all, I'd have a picture in my mind, the bread. On top of the bread, there'd be fish and some butter melting on top of the fish. Then, second picture, I'd have tofu and with salt sprinkled on it. Following this, the clothing store, I just have a picture of someone in my mind wearing a red hat, blue shirt, red trousers, pink socks, and blue shoes. Perhaps not very fashionable. Okay, and the third one is something you find is that when people talking about events, they're actually quite logical. There's usually a chronological order to the events that they're talking about. So here you start with going to university. Naturally, when you go to university, you'll take a class. After that, you'll have lunch. I've used the name Taro here. Play badminton, jiro, have dinner, saburo. If I assume that you all know Taro, jiro, saburo are very common names in Japan. Like I'd say about 80, 90 years ago, they were very common. The first son meaning Taro, being called Taro, the second one Jiro, and the third one Saburo. Okay. Here's a challenge for you now, just to practice this, see how good you are at remembering things. Scribble down 15, let's say 10 items and 5 activities on a piece of paper. Maybe categorize them like I've categorized them, and read them to a friend. See if your friend can remember and read them back to you. Okay. The last thing I will say is when I work... cat scratching. The last thing I will say is when I work with somebody, my pre-research about that person enables me to become very interested in that person. If you have no interest in the person that you're interpreting for, it becomes very hard to remember information about them. So I recommend actually having an active interest in the person you're interpreting for. It only has to be temporary. In the past, for example, I interpreted at the Olympics in Brazil, and I was called into the media team. And if I'm completely honest, I don't watch table tennis. And I got a phone call and it's like, can you interpret in a press conference tomorrow for Fukuhara Ai, the table tennis player that's quite well known in Japan. And it was really tough for me. I don't play table tennis. I don't really have much interest in table tennis. And so I had to convince myself that I thought that I was the best table tennis player, and I was really interested in everything that she had to say. And so I only had one night to do as much research as I could about her and take notes about her. But the following day when I met her, I convinced myself how excited I was to be with her, how important it was for me to believe that how much I believed that I wanted her to win in the Olympics. So this is probably a common technique that all of us use. You can fool yourself very easily. Convince myself that this is more important than anything else. Right now, there is this superstar and she's great, and I'm going to find out everything I can about her. So I have that intrinsic interest, motivation. I wouldn't say the word love, but I have a strong feeling toward her, and I want to see her winning, and I'm a fan of hers, at least for that day or as long as I'm doing the interpreting. Let me just add, she was a very nice young lady, and it really was a pleasure talking to her before the press conference, and I was very impressed with the way she handled herself in the press conference. Unfortunately, she didn't win a medal, but maybe I am a little bit of a fan of hers now. Okay, so that's it for now. In the next video, you notice I corrected the numbering here. So in the next video, we'll be moving on to core vocabulary. I won't be giving an explanation of that. So all I'll ask you to do is, I'll put a little message on the website saying, access the vocabulary here, spend as much time as it takes for you to remember this vocabulary. So the next video I'll be talking to you in will be the quick response video. Okay, good luck guys, work on your memory. In the future I'll be giving you these kind of memory tests with Japanese instead. Well, the next time I'll do with English again, but I'll make a transition to Japanese at some time in the future. Okay, thanks, and see you in the next video.